Okay everyone, welcome back to the channel. Here we have a very important YouTube video I'll be going over, which is essentially on the concept of a dealing range. Now, what do we mean by a dealing range? So if we take price now to the blank charts to begin with, right? When we talk about the dealing range, what we're looking at essentially is we're looking at the most recent structural high and low, right? So when we have price giving us, let's say, bearish structure in this case, right? We see price giving us higher lows and lower lows and higher lows and lower lows. And what we mean essentially by a dealing range is the most recent high and low we are currently trading in. And why this is important is what we're going to discuss in this video. So as it stands right now, we understand we have bearish structure according to this schematic. Now we've broken the previous structural low over here. So this was the previous structural low over here. And we've broken that. And now from here, as price begins to retrace upwards, right? As we know, price heads down and then retraces up and then heads down again. So as we see price retracing up, what we now need to focus on is the most recent structural high and the most recent structural low. So this is the most recent structural high up here. Let's label that in red. And this is the most recent structural low. So we'll label that down here as well, also in red. Sorry if this works, but this is the most recent swing low, right? Most recent swing high and most recent swing low. And the reason why the dealing range is important is because the dealing range gives us very important information when it comes to understanding our premium and discount arrays. So when we project our Fibonacci tool from the swing high down to the swing low, just like this, the Fibonacci tool is therefore used to project our overall narrative from the swing high down to the swing low. And so from here now, this is our current dealing range. Now, quick tips when it comes to identifying a dealing range is that we must understand our market structure first, right? Now, what validates market structures is we're looking for essentially sharp moves up and sharp moves down, right? Sharp moves up and sharp moves down. So if we take this narrative over to the charts now, this is the Euro USD daily time frame that we see in front of us, which I'm going to be using as an example. Now from here, again, this is a naked chart. And if we begin to understand and analyze price in some detail, what we have over here is we have the markets giving us a structural high over here. So if I quickly mark out our structure, we have a structural high, sharp move up, and we have a sharp move down, structural low. And now from here, we have a sharp move up, structural high, and we have a structural low down here. So from here now, this is a bullish dealing range over here. This gives rise to a bullish dealing range. Now the dealing range consists of this swing low down here and this swing high up here. So we have a swing high and a swing low. Now, what makes this a valid dealing range? What's the thing we want to take away from understanding a dealing range is that we project our Fibonacci tool from the swing low up to the swing high like this, right? Swing low up to the swing high. And once we've established that from here now, the thing we want to understand is where price comes in to give us our lower high in this case, right? Where price comes in to give us our lower high. So from here, once we have broken structure to the upside, so this arrow represents a clear break of structure. The next thing we want to understand from this dealing range is essentially where the POI is, where the inefficiency is, okay? So from here now, if you look at the left of the screen, we have a fair value gap in this region over here. So this is the fair value gap over here. So let's label that FVG. Now, anything below the FVG in this case is now our POI for a bullish POI. So this now becomes our point of interest, right? So this region over here, people often ask me, how do I determine my points of interest? Well, this is how you determine a point of interest. It comes essentially from the dealing range itself. So this is the most recent fair value gap below the 50% level. Below the 50% level is a clear discount. So this is now our bullish POI from this region, okay? So if we label this POI, this is a daily POI. But the thing to understand is that this is derived from a dealing range. So for those who watched some of my previous videos, there's 4 things I look at when it comes to determining market structure. There's 4 main things. The first thing we look at, is market structure. There's 4 things when it comes to determining a market bias. The first of those is market structure. The second of those is the dealing range, which is what we are going to be focusing on a lot in this video. understanding market structure and dealing range. After we have established the dealing range, the next thing we look at is our PD arrays. And the final thing we look at is our inefficiencies or our fair value gaps. So these are the four most important things. I call them the four pillars of determining market direction. And this is critical to understand. But the most important thing we're focusing on is on number 2, which is the dealing range. So the dealing range essentially is the most recent swing low and the most recent swing high relative to the leg. Very important to understand. This is our dealing range. Now, from the dealing range, we understand where price is likely to react off before heading higher. So this is a bullish example of a dealing range. Now, if we head over to a bearish example of a dealing range, so if I get rid of this Fibonacci, we see a break of structure to the upside over here. So this now becomes a break of structure over here, marked out by this arrow. And once we have that break of structure, we understand we have a new structural high and a new structural low to deal with, right? So this structural low over here gives rise to this break of structure. So we see a structural break over here, giving rise to this structural high. And we see a structural low down here also in this case. And now from here, we have exactly the same thing we've seen over here. But in this case, we have a bearish scenario, right? So from here now, we understand live price action now. So we have again our dealing range. Now, what is our dealing range? This is a bearish dealing range from this swing high down to this swing low. So this here is the entire dealing range we are currently working with, right? So from here now, yes, we've seen a break of structure to the downside off this POI. So this POI did react. Notice how it's in a discount. And now we failed. So we've broken this POI. So I'll get rid of this POI. This is our most recent dealing range, as I've highlighted here in the massive rectangle. So now how do we use the dealing range to our advantage, right? So the dealing range essentially tells us where we project our Fibonacci to from. So we have a swing high up here. And we have a swing low down here. So this is the most recent structural high and the most recent structural low. Now, what do we take from this dealing range? So from this dealing range, we understand live price action on euro dollar, right? If I zoom out a little bit. This dealing range essentially tells us areas where we want to be looking for sells and buys. So it's not a coincidence that we've seen price action behave in this way, right? We've seen price action head upwards from this direction. So we've seen buyers step into the market here. Right, so if I label that clearly for people, it's not a coincidence we've seen buyers step into the market here as we are in a discount. And it's not a coincidence we've seen sellers step in the market here because we are in a premium, right? We want to sell in a premium and buy in a discount. And the way we do that is by correctly establishing the overall dealing range in price. Now, this is the dealing range in price over here. Very important to understand that.